to Grazing Hell, the one and only podcast made by a cow. And today I've got not one, but two very special guests. And they are David J. Bradley and Frank, the very handsome cat. Welcome.
Hey.
Woo! Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. I don't envy. I pity the audio listeners because they are not seeing the most handsome
Yeah.
boy in the world on their screens right now. I mean, look at those eyes, those. So what we are seeing right now, to give you an audio description, is a very handsome black
Okay.
kitty with gorgeous green eyes, piercing green eyes.
Well, they're more yellow than green, actually.
Oh, really? Well, there we
Yeah,
go. Yeah, see, I'm not even doing a good job at the
yeah.
description.
They do sometimes look a bit green on camera for some reason. So
So do you want to tell us your origin story? Because Frank's adopted, right? Oh, wait, can I say that in front of him?
yeah,
You know.
I believe he does. Yeah, because he was 5 years old when I got him. So
Oh
he'd had a whole life before me.
gosh, and you don't know what it is because he can't
Yeah,
tell
no,
you.
no.
Full of
I,
mystery.
I I believe he was a stray at one point.
Interesting. What makes you think that?
Because he had like a wound in his mouth. It said on like the medical records I
Mm,
got from the shelter, and so probably a fight.
of course, classic,
which
classic.
which all healed, all fine now. It just makes him drool a lot when he's lying on me. So
Yeah. Yeah, and you too. I just love seeing your bond together. That's one of
yeah,
my favorite things about your tweets is that you always just talk about you two hanging out. And it just,
yeah,
I love that even though you rescued him at like 5, your bond is just so strong. It's
yeah,
lovely.
yeah.
So how long
He,
ago was that now?
that was just over 4 years ago. So he's 9 years old now.
Amazing.
So he's my grumpy middle-aged man.
Oh, we love that. We love that. Well, yeah. I mean, and yeah, it's just it's endearing when it's a cat, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. If it was a person, it would be a lot weirder when he lies on me and stabs me. But
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So just to introduce the lovely David J. Bradley, they were in my our amatonormativity video. Very
yeah, you got
careful
the
to
practicing tail
yeah,
off.
yeah, exactly.
Just
Before
just
we
just before we started,
yeah,
Tara was sitting there going, "I'm at a normativity. I'm at a normativity. I'm at a
yeah,
normativity."
literally, yeah, because it is a bit of a tongue twister. But
Yeah.
yeah, I got David on board because you are Ace Aero,
Hmm.
um, or Aero Ace, I don't know which.
Either or.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, because that was something that we covered in the video a lot. So do you want to just tell the people about your work and what you do?
Yeah, so I make video essays on all sorts of things, mostly on like films and TV and musicals. And one of the main topics I talk about is being asexual and aromantic, because there's not really a lot of like educational content surrounding that stuff out there. There is more now, but there is still lacking in a lot of areas. And I just thought, I can do that.
Ooh, yeah. So if someone has not watched your videos before, what do you think is a good starting off video? What would be the first one you'd recommend watching?
Uh, Probably for the asexual stuff, I would say either my asexuals and sex video, which is I think my best
Mm.
one of those, or responding to asexual hate comments, because that
Oh.
one's just kind of fun.
Mhm. Fun in
Yeah,
a yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I,
true.
I got to have fun making them look silly,
True. And you do an
and I
amazing job
got
of
other
that.
asexual people to read the asexual hate comments, which is quite like just thing like having to. I was like, yeah, if this is an awkward ask, it's fine. You don't have to, but
So when you say for that video and in general, like what was the timeline? Because like what videos were the hate comments from?
yeah. So the hate comments were from the video, the maybe you haven't met the right person yet. That's what it's called. The first one I did, which is just kind of like the
Yeah.
introduction and the house video,
Yeah. Oh
which
God, I
because it
love
was
that
after
video.
after the house video exploded. It's like which
Mm.
is over 400,000 views now, which is a lot for
It's
me.
a great video. Do you want to tell us about that video, the premise? Just because I would thoroughly recommend
Yeah,
that one as
yeah.
well.
So basically, there was an episode of House in the final season where the B story, because House always had like the main story, and then like the people in the clinic who have like
Mhm.
a smaller problem that he solves alongside of it. And it was that they were an asexual couple, and House immediately heard that and thought, nah, that's not a thing,
Hmm.
and set out to prove it wrong, and
Oh
he
dear.
did. Like, it turns out that the guy had a tumor on his pituitary gland that meant that he didn't have any libido and had erectile dysfunction, and his wife was just pretending.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it sucks, and everyone hates it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just made a video talking about why it's bad.
Yeah, exactly. This is basically your bread and butter, isn't it? Talking about ace aero representation.
Yeah, I do enjoy doing that. I did a video that I like very much about Sherlock Holmes being
Mm,
Arrow Ace, which is one of my faves.
yeah, yeah, because that was something that I'm not a huge Sherlock. I'm not very knowledgeable about it, but I remember at the time when they did that weird. I'm talking about the Benedict Cumberbatch one,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
The where they just completely switched gears in his like romantic development and introduced that weird. I don't know, just like it felt like I don't know what the word is. Is it ace baiting or I don't know?
I'm sure there was definitely a lot of queer baiting in that show in
Yes.
general, and they did stuff that like hinted like he was asexual, but Stephen Moffat was
Mm,
always like, no, he's not ace. It's because
mm.
he said like there would be no fun or tension in that from a storytelling standpoint, and it's like, get better at telling stories, Stephen.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's like, why not? Why not? But
It's hard to take what he says seriously when he wrote the Abominable Bride special, where feminists were a secret society who dressed up like the KKK.
no.
Yeah,
Oh no. Oh God.
yeah.
Well, yeah, that says it all really, doesn't it? Fucking hell. No,
It's
that's
not a
not
good
what we
show.
do. Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say, that's bloody wild. Yeah, if so, I guess would it be fair to say that it's a relatively niche part of even like LGBTQIA YouTube? I guess the Ace Aerospace is relatively small on YouTube, or
Yeah,
as in it doesn't get enough eyes. And
yeah.
they're there.
Relatively, there are definitely some people who are doing. Or again, most of the Ace content on YouTube is like vlog stuff, which it's like
Interesting.
very good, very valuable. Glad it's there, but it's
Hmm.
not the kind of stuff I watch.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of why I wanted to make it as video essays, because it was like no one is really doing asexual video essays at the moment. I was just like,
Hmm.
aha, there's my niche.
Yes, exactly. You find a
This is
gap
my
in the
hole. It was
market.
made for me.
Yeah, yeah, and like I think w- I one of the things I really love is that, and this is how I came across you, is that people in my community have said that they found like that was the gap they really needed filling, and then you did
Mm.
that for them. And I think I don't know that it must just be very gratifying. Like, do you find that's the kind of
Yes, every time I read a comment from someone that says I helped them to realize that they're ace or help them to be like more comfortable with it, it's like,
yeah.
yeah, me? I'm just an idiot. What? No.
Yeah, I just film in my bedroom. Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's beautiful. And I think it's yeah, obviously a community that is yeah, it just yeah, it's beautiful. So speaking of community, I wanted to sort of talk about because we're approaching Pride Month.
Yeah. In just a few days at the time we're recording
I
this.
know, exactly. And it'll be out just
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah.
um, but I guess my question to you, and obviously you're just one person, you don't
Mm-hmm.
represent, we know this, you don't represent all the
Yes.
Ace Aero people, but what's your experience of Pride as an Ace Aero person?
I have felt welcome at the Pride parades I've been to. Obviously, I haven't been
Mhm.
able to go to Pride parades for the past couple of years,
Yes,
which
yes.
is a shame.
Hmm.
But the first Pride I ever went to, I think, yeah, it was actually before I'd realized I was ace.
Uh-huh.
But me and my friend just wanted to go because we'd never
Mm.
been to one, and it was just like really fun, really lovely. It's just walk in a big parade, so have a great time. And then the
Mm.
second couple of times I went was after I'd realized and was getting more comfortable with it. And I think one was after I'd started making the videos, and I went in like my full like purple shirt, gray waistcoat
Yes.
outfit, which like got a few looks, but
Yeah. Okay.
I,
And
I've I've never felt like I was excluded from a pride.
That's good. No, that's really good. I was gonna say just because yeah, I'm merely what's the word? I identify as like bi, pan, whatever. I don't really mind what
Mhm.
label, all genders basically,
Yeah.
is what I'm into. And I think, yeah, I wanted to hear your perspective because it's just, I don't know, it's just like it's hard to tell when you're not in that what's the word? Yeah, you're not in that like identity bracket. Do you find that like it's better in certain places like cities, different prides you've been to, or
I have only been to the Liverpool Pride,
ah,
so
yeah.
and Liverpool's a very cool, accepting city generally. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so I can again I can't really speak for like a wider experience, but certainly at the parade itself, no one really cares who is
Mm-hmm.
there,
Yeah.
with the exception of cops. No cops at Pride.
Yeah,
We don't like
fuck
that.
off, cops.
Yeah,
No.
in
Yeah.
general, fuck off cops, but especially no cops at Pride, and no
Oh,
turfs. No turfs
yes.
allowed either.
Oh, yeah, they can fuck right off.
Oh no, I'm so scared, you fanny face. Right, you do it on streams.
Yes, everyone's welcome except hateful
Yeah,
turfs and cops. So,
yeah, like and I'd say like the places where you get more kind of exclusionary stuff for like again for ace people for bi and pan people get a lot of it as well is more the online spaces where it's like the like cis gays basically, and
uh-huh.
obviously not all of them, like in fact
Yes,
not
of
even most of
course.
them. It's just a very few specific
Mm-hmm.
ones
Mm.
who don't like any kind of divergence really.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
like so they look at ace people and they go like, oh well, you're not oppressed, and it's like I didn't say I was.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
they look at bi and pan people and say, we'll pick a side or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, do you think you say that it's interesting you talked about being online. So you personally haven't experienced like any of that animosity in person. So I guess would it be fair to say that like animosity within the LGBT community is exacerbated online or is it just for that particular thing? I suppose with turfs, it's like,
Yeah.
no, they're really doing their thing in person
Oh
too.
yeah.
So don't think that
Yeah.
applies to them, but
Yeah. And I'd say it probably is exacerbated a bit online, if nothing else, just because everything gets exacerbated online with just like through like the anonymity of it and just like stuff. A website like Twitter is designed for people to just completely misunderstand everything and get
mm,
worked up over something you didn't say because there's a character
mm,
limit. And I think
mhm.
the best tweet I ever saw that summed it up was just when someone said like, you could tweet out, "Oh, I love pancakes," and someone would comment replying, "Why do you hate waffles?"
Yep. Yep. Literally, that is twitter.com in a
Yeah,
nutshell. Oh
yeah,
wow. Yeah. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, or sharing the tale, just because I think in hindsight, it's very indicative of like the weird double standards on Twitter. Do you want to talk about the time where you very briefly got put on the naughty step by Twitter?
yeah, yeah. I got earlier this year. I got put in Twitter jail for a week, and basically what happened was it was on International Women's Day, and I tweeted out saying, International Women's Day, and if you don't include like trans women, women of color, sex workers in your
Mhm,
feminism, then it's not really feminism,
mhm.
which is true.
Not a controversial
Yeah,
take if you are a
yeah.
reasonable person.
And then I got a bunch of turfs in my replies, and foolishly, I wrote a reply myself saying, "Die mad turfs," and
Right.
that got mass reported for violence. And so
God.
I was put in jail for a week.
Because their logic was that even though die mad is not, it's like a figure of
Yeah.
speech. It's not literally
Oh
said,
yeah.
I'm gonna kill you and you're gonna
No.
die mad.
Yeah. No. But apparently that constitutes violence. But all the times I report people saying explicitly transphobic or racist stuff, Twitter's fine with that.
Right. I mean, there's this absolutely barmy example, which I always think of. H Bomber guy, whom we all know and love, um, shared how he reported tweets with trans women's addresses, like doxing
Yeah.
them, and that wasn't considered,
Yeah.
violence. And it's just like Twitter, sort it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's yeah, it's concerning. And that reminded me actually, speaking of I just got reminded because purple. And unfortunately, And these are things to look out for on Twitter. If you see a profile with the suffragette colors,
Yeah, it's like the purple, green, and yellow, I want to say.
yeah, or
Something
white.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah,
the
that's probably a turf if you see those
yes,
colors.
exactly. Yeah. So if you see purple, like just purple, then ace, that's all good. But if you see it with green and white,
Yeah.
ay,
hmm
yeah. It's I don't know, it's just interesting like the subcultures that form on Twitter. And I think obviously there's like animosity and stuff, but I guess in something we've found together is that you do also make friends and find
Yeah.
friends. And
Oh yeah, absolutely. Some
yeah,
of the best friends I've got at the minute are people I've met on Twitter.
so tell us about that. Who have you come across that you wouldn't have in the real world?
Mostly my YouTube friends. So
Mhm.
people like Lola Sebastian, good
Mm,
friend, Aranok, Lady Knight the Brave,
mm.
Adequate Emily, a bunch of people who I probably can't remember now. This
Yeah.
one is obsessed with cows. I don't know who she is, but
Oh God, yeah,
yeah.
not her, not yeah. But oh yeah, do you want to just confirm for the non-believers that the cow was here before the call started, but she had to
Oh
go?
yeah, yeah, yeah. She was. I met the cow before when we were working on the video together. She's very nice.
Yeah,
She
exactly.
just she
So
just leads a very active social life.
exactly. So everybody stop with the conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Gosh, really? It's yeah, no, but well, in terms of pride then, so like I'm really pleasantly surprised what you said about you found spaces in real life welcoming. I think that's fabulous. I mean, the reason I was surprised is just because I've actually never been to a pride parade, which is
Mm.
I've meant to, but then the pandemic
Yeah.
and Miss Rona. So I'm excited to go to my first this year. It'll probably be in London, but maybe I'll go to another city because London is very big, and I've heard that it's kind of nicer to go to somewhere like Leeds or something. It's a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. You
Yeah.
should come to Liverpool.
Oh, maybe I should. I've only been to Liverpool once in my life, actually, so I wouldn't mind going back.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a very nice place to be.
yeah, no, I'm sure it is. Yeah, exactly. Where lots of Irish people went as well.
hmm
So
Yeah.
hence the sort of very distinctive accent.
Yeah. It's kind of like a combination of like Irish and Welsh.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think it's great. Because like I know some people are a bit mean about a Scouser accent, but I love a regional accent.
Yeah,
Oh,
no, I love a good Scouse accent. They're very musical Scouse accents.
exactly. I want something rhythmic. I do
Yeah.
think what's it called? Like received pronunciation,
Yeah, yeah,
RP.
yes. BBC English, yes.
Exactly. It's not got that flavor which,
Yeah,
the other accents have.
yeah,
So
and
I'm a
and you
fan.
don't get like the specific words where you're like, oh, that is the perfect word to say in that accent. So
Hmm.
the one I always think of for Scouse, it was one of the places I used to work. It was like a wedding venue, and like the pot wash was called the
Hmm.
servery, and
Hmm.
in the Scouse accent that became the savory,
Yes.
which is just like, oh, beautiful, love it.
Exactly. I think it's lovely. Generally, I don't know. I'm not a fan of like shitting on accents in general. When people say I hate this kind of accent, I'm just a
Mm,
bit like, why? I don't know. I
yeah,
mean, I can't think of any accents I feel that way about. Maybe
yeah, but Birmingham. But
well, the thing is, in my experience, maybe I've just not met people with a very strong Birmingham accent, but I've never met anyone who's like Birmingham. Like it's
yeah,
always been like just certain words. So maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm
yeah.
meeting. Hmm.
I don't know. Birmingham's just the one I feel like it's safe to make fun of that one. It's fine.
Oh, I mean, it's always voted the
Yeah,
most. In the when you get worst accent in the UK, they always get that, which is interesting to me because there are like way
yeah,
more. What's the word? Like thicker accents. You know
mm,
what I mean?
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so but sorry, anyway, I went on a bit of a what's it called,
we
a tangent about
we got a little lost
yeah, our
there.
non-UK viewers are going to be very confused by all that as well.
Good.
Yeah, good. Yeah, true. Do you find actually that's a question I have for you. Do you find that what's your audience makeup
It
geographically,
is,
gender?
yeah, mostly American.
Yes, same.
Yeah,
Mm.
which I think is just kind of the case for a lot of people who do YouTube stuff.
Mm,
It's like
mhm.
again, but it's like kind of like America, then UK, then maybe Canada, I think, and then there's a few from
Mm.
like Germany and stuff. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. No, that is. That is interesting. I was wondering if maybe um just because like your humor, and I think that's the case for me as well, like your humor's like very British, but I think maybe
Mm,
that's something that the Americans find appealing. So
maybe, who knows?
maybe.
I definitely try to be very British in my
Yeah.
humor. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, much I don't much like care about like, oh, I'm going Americanized and how I say things. Like every now and then I'm like, yeah, but no, I want to do a British joke here.
Yeah. No, exactly.
And like when I'm writing my scripts, I very much make a point of like in the subtitles underneath is like, color is being spelt with a U. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
This is something I wanted to ask. When you started making videos, who were your inspirations? Who were your influences?
Well, generally the big kind of like video essay and film people. So like Lindsay Ellis was a very big one.
Mm,
H Bomber Guy
mm,
was just like, and I think H Bomber Guy particularly for humor, where it's just like
mm.
he fits in so many gags in videos in places where it's like, how did you put a gag there and it worked? What?
I
No.
know. No, he's very good at that. Yeah. No, I definitely see that in
Yeah.
especially the way you talk about culture and that kind of thing. Like
Mm.
if people haven't seen the amatonormativity video, you are you're missing out because your part of your section of that video is just the
Yeah.
best bit. I love it so much. You
Oh,
talk about
thank you.
yeah, you talk about Little Women, the
Yeah.
Greta Gerwig
Hmm.
adaptation from 2019.
2019.
Obviously, we don't want to give away too much because I think
Yeah,
people
you
should
got to
still
go
watch.
watch the video
Yeah,
to get the goods.
but in short, do you want to give your your thesis, your hot take, what the title of it would be? Because
Yeah.
I love how it's a take and it's a good
Yeah.
take.
Basically, it's Joe March is an Arrow Ace disaster.
Exactly. It wouldn't that be such a great title for a
Yeah.
thesis?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Who else in media are characters, protagonists that you also think are Arrow Ace disasters that spring to mind?
Yeah, well, so obviously the big one is Sherlock Holmes. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I did a whole video about why I think that is.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Go watch that, people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
There's not too many like canon ones, but like Jughead from the Archie comics is Ace.
But they
Yeah, they messed it up for the show.
exactly. Yeah. Do you want to talk about that? Is that something? Do you think that's something that is common when adaptations happen, or do you think there's not actually much ace representation in the first place?
Yeah, Ace we've definitely been getting better at Ace representation in the last few years, but
Mhm.
there's not been a lot there, and it's like a real shame to have one that was like really canon and clear and like kind of built on like the whole, because like obviously Jughead, yeah, I don't think they made him like officially Ace till about 2015, something like that.
Okay.
But like that character's been around since like the mid 40s, I think. And like
Mhm.
the whole thing was just like that character didn't like girls. And like at the start, that was kind of like he was a bit of a misogynist. But
Mm.
then as time went on, they decided to change that because people liked Jughead and they didn't want to like someone who didn't like who like hated women.
Mm.
And so it more just came like he's just doesn't care. He just wants to eat burgers, which is a mood. And eventually they decided to make that into like him actually being canon asexual, which is like amazing. Love that for him. And then the show came along and I guess did that thing where they thought, we can't really do proper drama stories with an asexual, so he's going to be shagging the women. So
Yeah, which is
I haven't watched the show.
You haven't watched Riverdale?
No.
Oh wow. I mean, you obviously value your time because anyone who has watched it, and this is myself included, does not value their time or
Yeah. I
yeah.
have seen clips of the episode where they perform songs from Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and I hated every second that I saw.
Right, yeah. Oh god, the musical episodes are I don't even know how to describe them. Like anyone who's
Yeah.
watched it knows what I mean. Anyone who hasn't watched it knows what I mean because I think you've been exposed to it like against your will, probably on Twitter and stuff. So
Yeah, through osmosis, I have an idea of what Riverdale is like.
yes,
And it's book wild.
I love that. Yeah, the word choice there, and it's true.
Yeah.
It's very true. So
Yeah.
that's one example. Like, are there? So when you think of like best and worst ace aro representation, and or ace and or aro, 'cause certain characters won't necessarily be both.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the best that comes to mind? What's the worst that comes to mind?
The best that comes to mind is Todd from BoJack Horseman, which like was a big thing in helping me realize that I was ace.
Really?
Yeah, well, I'd kind of figured out, because the way I realized I was ace was just like I was reading an article of like asexual people sharing their stories. It was like, oh, those are me. Oh, okay. I guess that's what I am.
That's awesome.
And then like 2 months after I'd kind of had that initial realization, season 4 of BoJack came out, and that's the one where like Todd really realizes like and comes into being comfortable with being ace, and it was just like, oh, thank you for making a TV show for me right now.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, and I guess that just highlights why representation matters, and vocabulary is very helpful.
Yeah,
you know.
And obviously the worst is probably that episode of House.
Oh god, yeah, it's fucking dreadful, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah. I mean, I won't make you go into it too much, because I want people to just go watch your video, because it's a very good video. Yeah, no, it's what is it with like people wanting to, I don't know what the verb would be, but clinical identity.
Yeah, there's definitely like with asexuality, there's like a medical thing with it, where because people kind of assume that like having a sex life is normal and healthy, they're like for people who don't really want that, which is not always people, like some asexuals like to have sex. You know, there's like it's an umbrella term that encompasses a whole lot of different experiences. And you know, when it comes to seeing that, people want people to be like them, basically. And so when they see people like me who's like just not really interested, then they can assume that there must be something wrong. And something like that episode of House doesn't help by having House be right that there is something wrong with the guy who is asexual, especially because so many people looked at House and wanted to believe everything he said. Like House is, I think, is like one of the first of the things that inspired characters like Rick Sanchez, and just like that, the things like where people really misunderstood that they're not meant to like them.
Yes,
and I got so many comments on the House video from people telling me, "Oh, you're not meant to like House." You know, people didn't actually look up to him and believe him. And I was like, I was there. I saw it happen.
And when you say Rick Sanchez, just for context, that's from Rick and Morty. And what is it with like fandoms often completely missing the point? It's a bummer.
It's a really interesting thing, and a lot of it is just like because they're the main character, and people just assume, therefore, oh, we just got to go along with they are right, therefore. You know, the other big one I think of that is Breaking Bad and Walter White, which like obviously Walter White is a piece of trash. You know, like he's a terrible human being, but because in the early episodes he seems nice and he keeps saying that he's doing it for these good reasons and things, people liked him. And then when you got Skylar, his wife, telling him that he was doing bad things and that he was wrong and that he should stop and think, people really hated her. There was it was like really, really misogynistic and sexist in the ways that people.
Yes.
Like Anna Gunn, the actress, received like so much like death threats and hate mail and things, and it's like she's so good in that show, and the character is right.
It's from I mean, that just says it all, really.
Yeah.
I just to be yeah, it's rough. It's rough. Fandoms can be rough. I mean, have you ever found that? Because you talk about culture and like media. Have you found fandoms to have pushed back quite heavily, or do you feel they're like quite open to your interpretations?
Mostly they're cool about it.
Cool.
That's the thing I will say, like, much as YouTubers will often talk about like getting hate comments and things, like 99% of the comments I get are lovely.
Good.
But when when I've done videos about, like, I did a video about Doctor Who season 11, like the first Jodie Whittaker season, about how I liked
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And my main thing of that video was actually like calling out the weirdos who were being like racist and sexist,
Right.
and like I said very early on, like, if you just don't like the show, I don't care. You
Yeah.
know, like, but people get really like people. I don't think people always watch the videos fully. They just see like the take, and therefore, like they'll see the title, which on that one was like, "Why You're Wrong About Doctor Who Season 11," which, like, it's a clickbait title, I'll admit, and like I don't think that's a very good video in hindsight, but
You got to do it though. You got to do it. You got to do it for the clicks. This is what I think people sort of got to understand. We got to get them in. We got to rope them in. I wanted to ask you about fandoms, and this applies to like any kind of representation, but I think we see this a lot with like queer LGBTIA fans. Is the question of whether, so you made a distinction earlier about canon versus kind of
yeah, like headcanon.
yes, exactly. Do you want to explain what that means before I ask this question?
Yeah. So basically, just headcanon is just when you personally read a character in a certain way. So like, it's like me with Sherlock Holmes. Like, Sherlock Holmes has never been canonically our Ace, but you read the books, and it's like, obviously that's what he is.
Okay.
And so like people apply that to all sorts of things, and just like, especially for queer readings of stuff, because for so many years no one put queer characters in anything.
Yes, and sometimes writers of the show push back. So an example of this that springs to mind, and to be honest, I don't. Okay, so here's a situation. There was someone who tweeted about Vivian and Elwood's, from Legally Blonde, like actually being queer coded and that kind of thing. And they might have been joking. I don't know if they were, I think it might have been tongue in cheek. And then one of the writers from the film was like, no, that's not true. And I guess my question would be, in terms of interpreting art and culture, does it matter? Or if the writer says, no, that's not the case, does that mean it's not true? Or is it all about the audience? And
I think in that kind of sense, it's about what the audience takes from it. Like for me, the whole point of Death of the Author is like, once a text is written, once it's out there, it's not the author's anymore. And obviously, like, the author can have their opinions and their thoughts and say like, oh, this is what I meant by this, and this, and like, and that can inform readings and be very useful. But at the same time, you can overlook that if you think that the text does something different.
Right, exactly. And just for people who aren't familiar, do you want to just give like a little synopsis of what Death of the Author is?
It's that theory by Roland Barthes, which basically, as I understand it, basically means that the text is open to interpretation in a way that means that like what the author says about it doesn't necessarily matter. And obviously that is more complicated when the author is like still at the side saying, no, that reading is wrong, or whatever. Like when the author is still very, very connected to the work, it can complicate doing like saying like, I'm not going to listen to what they say. But
yeah, well, that's
at the same time, you can still just go like, I can read it however I want to. It's my,
yeah,
you can disagree. I don't care.
Exactly. And this is the thing. I feel like I have multiple stances on this and I can't decide because, I think ultimately I do believe in Death of the Author. However, one of the things I would say is that it can be very vindicating when you get that confirmation, and especially in the case of queerness. So an example of this that springs to mind is Velma Scooby-Doo.
Yes.
Fans have said for years, she's gay. She's gay.
Very
gay,
clearly.
everybody. Very clearly, right? And then when you have people like writers saying, yeah, she is, but we just couldn't do that because of like the, at the time, like with it just wouldn't have been.
Yeah, James Gunn like explicitly said that they wanted to make Velma gay in the live action Scooby-Doo movies, but they weren't allowed.
Exactly. And what I would say is that having that is very vindicating, and therefore when you've got naysayers being like, oh, stop trying to make everything gay, she's not
Yeah.
gay, I am a bit like, ha, she is, and you
Yeah.
can't argue with it because the author says she is. So like,
Yeah.
that's why I feel like when the author's still alive or whatever, or if you've got, I don't know, I do sometimes go to that like appeal to authority a bit, and I'm a bit like, well, they said it is, so
Yeah.
ha.
Yeah. But like I say, it's a flexible thing, because sometimes it'll be like, oh yeah, sometimes my reading lines up to what the author is saying about it outside of it, and that's great. They back me up. Other times it's like, if your reading disagrees with what the author says, you can still just do your reading. But again, within that, you do have to sometimes, like, from the point of view of something like me making a video essay, if I have a whole reading and then like the author of the text says it's about something totally different, I kind of have to contend with that and say like, okay, so they say this, this, and this, but I think it's this, this, and this.
Yeah. Do you think it's well, this is the thing. It's like it's as you say, it's extra complicated when the author is still around. And I think in that situation you were saying that you would have to contend with it, but interestingly, I do think there are cases where people do just sort of ignore what the author says, and I guess it just raises a lot of interesting ethical questions of just like when talking about other people's work and art, it must I don't know, like, what's the thought of, I know you're never mean in your videos about your criticism, but like, if, for example, what would you say if you knew that the writers of House had seen your House video? Like, what would you say to them?
I'm not sure, to be honest. That's, again, it's one I don't think of, because especially at the time I made that video, my channel was so small, I had like no thought that no one's going to see, like no one involved with it is going to see it. But if they did, I hope they would be able to take it understand as like, I'm criticizing the episode, I'm not criticizing the people who wrote it specifically. Like, I don't know anything about like the politics of the writer of that episode. I don't know what they're like as a person. It's not my place to judge them as a person based on just, they wrote an episode of a TV show I didn't like. And I try to be careful about that kind of thing. About, again, if I'm talking about, so like I'm talking about Stephen Moffat, I think Stephen Moffat is a bad writer. I think he's bad at his job, but I don't, and I think he does a lot of stuff that like panders to kind of like Daily Mail reader types, as it were. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to just, like, in writing a piece about Stephen Moffat, I don't want to just spend all my time just saying like, Stephen Moffat's a hack, I hate him, I can't stand him, you should all hate Stephen Moffat as well. It's more about just like, I want to be like constructive and say why I think the thing is bad, and not why I think the person who made it is bad.
Yeah, no, and absolutely, and I think you're very good at doing that. I guess just the reason it came up is that I think as your work grows, that becomes more possible. Maybe not in the case of someone like Stephen Moffat, but like, I have friends in the commentary space who have said, oh God, someone from said show saw this thing. I think that is a very daunting prospect. But it's also kind of exciting. I don't know. I just think artists to be engaged with, and that is something, I don't know, it's kind of cool, even if it is a bit scary.
It's always interesting when like people who have made the work that you've like made stuff about, or even if it's just like people who like they've made work where it's like, hey, I've really admired their work, notice you and like say something about you, and you're like,
yeah. What moments have you had like that recently?
Probably a weird one for me was this guy makes videos, Kyle Calgren, like makes really, really good video essays. He used to be on Channel Awesome back in the day. Back when I watched that before learning that the guy who ran it is a scumbag and all that nonsense. But like his stuff has always been really good and really intelligent. And like when he started following me on Twitter, it was just like, what?
Yeah.
and then he voiced a few lines in my Godzilla video, and it was just like, I got one of my favorite people who I've been watching videos of for 10 years to do a voice in my video and to voice a dick joke in my video.
It's amazing. Exactly. It's yeah, I love that. I love how YouTube does that. The internet, it can be brutal, but it could also be a beautiful place. Like we wouldn't have met without the internet.
Exactly.
So who knows? Maybe you wouldn't have found Frank, because I'm guessing now this is completely me speculating, but when you rescue cats nowadays, a lot of the time you probably find them online first, then you go to the shelter and pick them up. Was that how it happened with our boy Frank?
Yeah, it was on the RSPCA website.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
It was go.
I was back visiting my parents because it had been my mum's birthday, and I'd been looking for a little while, and I saw him on there, and I lived right by a really busy road at the time, so I was like, I need an indoor cat, and there it was, an indoor cat named Frank, and I already wanted to name a cat after Frankenstein, and he was called Frank by the shelter, and so it was like, oh, this is my cat.
Yes.
And then like I got back to Liverpool like the next day, called them up and was like, oh, can I come out and meet him? So, oh, someone's coming out to meet him today. And so it's like, call us back tomorrow and we'll let you know if they've decided. And I'm thinking, no, I'm not gonna get it, damn it. And I call them back the next day and say, oh, they went with a different cat. So I'm like, okay. And they're like, someone is coming out to meet him tomorrow. I was like, I'll come today. I will come in like 5 minutes. I will come right now.
Oh, you knew it was meant to be. That is beautiful. Yeah. Do you want to tell us about your Frankenstein? I think it would be
obsession.
Fair to say obsession. Okay, I was going to say that, but I was like, I didn't want to say it on your behalf. Tell us about that.
Basically, I just think Frankenstein's neat.
Yeah, good take.
Yeah,
good take.
It's just I was getting into the Universal Monsters movies, and like the Frankenstein one's one of my favorite. And I just like he's just again Frankenstein, like the creature is just like a really interesting character because it's this like put upon hurt monster who's just like people are always horrible to him, and then he quite justifiably gets angry, and there is a lot to relate to in that, particularly as a queer person. And then just I started collecting Frankenstein stuff, and now I have like 16, 17 copies of the book and a bunch of like books about it and like a few movies and like action figures and things. It's just all sorts. And that's why my cat is named Frank.
So. Oh no. So good. What are the good film adaptations? What are the bad ones? Go.
Okay, so obviously the very best ones are like the original Boris Karloff ones from the 1930s. Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein are just like, perfect. My favorite probably is Young Frankenstein, which is just, it's so funny. I need to watch it again. It's been a while. I was watching a few clips of it the other day because someone on Twitter just like did a thing of like, oh, what's the best like single line reading in film history? And I was like, there's so many in Young Frankenstein that fit. Like the Hammer horror one with Christopher Lee is very good. And the bad ones, probably the worst one I can think of off the top of my head is Victor Frankenstein, the one that was written by Max Landis, who we don't like him. Yeah, but at the same time, it's like there's kind of an appeal to that one because it's got like James McAvoy is playing Frankenstein and Daniel Radcliffe's playing Igor. And just like those two have got like a really good chemistry and they're really fun, but also the movie's not good.
It's a bummer, isn't it, when you see good actors in something not good? You're just like, damn.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to sit back and I'm going to enjoy James McAvoy just being James McAvoy. That's always
James
fun.
McAvoy. Yeah, no, he's awesome. He's I love this. There's this really funny. Well, it's not funny, but like there's this BBC adaptation of Macbeth where it's like set in a chef's kitchen and James McAvoy,
I've heard about that one. I've not watched it yet.
He's Macbeth, but he's a chef. It's like Gordon Ramsay if he was Macbeth. Yeah. And it's so good. And it's just like, he just wants to be head chef.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like he's one of those guys who just like, even in like the worst, like terrible projects, he always gives like 110%. And you're like, yeah,
exactly.
It's like him and Ewan McGregor are the ones where it's like, no matter how bad the film is, I know they're going to be great.
Our trusty Scots.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And this is a complete 180. Yeah, it's a 180. I think that's the one I'm thinking of, the angle. But I just wanted to go back to asexual, aromantic stuff, because I think this is something with Pride Month coming up. I wanted to ask you, what would be your pieces of advice for people who suspect they might be on the ace spectrum?
Okay. So basically, I suppose like the main piece of advice is to say that like there's nothing wrong with you, you're fine, and like seek out resources that can help you to learn more about it. Like the big one would be AVEN, the Asexuality Visibility and Education Network. That's a website that's got a bunch of forums and things where people discuss all sorts of stuff. It has like a bunch of really helpful things you can read that explain what asexuality is. And I think I'd seek out like videos, but obviously watch my videos is the best bit of advice. but no, just like seek out what other ace people say. And then from that, you can learn, again, you can learn terms, you can learn like micro labels and things, figure out what fits you best. And just like, and as well as like the thing I always say to people is like, it's like labels are not, they don't have to be a permanent thing. Like they are tools to help you to understand yourself better, but it's fine to change them. And you're like, if you call yourself ace for a while and then realize that you don't think you are that anymore, then like it was still valid the whole time that you used it.
Exactly. No, exactly. No, that's a good piece of advice, just because I think Pride Month, it's great for people who are already identify. But I think for some people, it can bring things up and bring up questions if they're seeing their friends around them.
Yeah.
So I suspect there'll be a fair few questioning people. So it's always good to hear that. And what you said earlier about your sort of coming to your labels and that kind of thing, it was a relatively recent thing. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. I was 25 when I realized I was ace. I'm 30 now, so
yeah.
So almost 5 whole years.
Right, exactly. So it's not.
Yeah, and then I realized Arrow later on, like a few years after, and then I only realized I was NB like last year. So.
Yes, exactly. So and I just wanted to point that out because like I think and I get this a little bit, like I get kind of weird FOMO, like I almost feel like for example, if I see like queer teenagers, like for example, I saw like a little baby gays in their school uniform, being a cute little baby gay couple, and 99% of me is like really happy and just I'm like, oh, that's beautiful, but then 1% of me is like a tiny bit like jealous and a bit like, oh, I didn't have that, I was so like hiding it. I don't know what their journeys were, they might be struggling with it in all sorts of ways, but I kind of get that look FOMO where I'm like, I wish I had like more years and time enjoying it.
Because it's that weird thing of like, if it takes you a while to realize it, then it's like it's almost like you got to like start over, basically. But at the same time, it's never too late to realize. Like I've heard of people being in their 90s and finally coming out. It's like anyone can do it. Obviously, when it comes to coming out, make sure you're in a safe environment where it'll be okay to do it. Because for a lot of people, it's not.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the upsetting thing is that like no matter what, when you come out to people, it's always still a gamble.
Yeah. No, of course. Do you find you still come out to people, or is it kind of like because you're online, it kind of does it for you? Or
like most like people I meet online, obviously, like it's very like I don't hide it.
Yeah.
But in real life, I would assume like most people from like my work or whatever probably don't know, even though I do wear like an asexual flag lanyard, but a lot of people probably don't know what that is. So, and like, I don't really talk to people from my office much.
Fair.
So like, if it came up, I would say, I'm not in the closet, but at the same time, it's just like I'm not going around like yelling to everyone, like, I don't introduce myself like, hello, I'm asexual.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah, it's like yeah, no, that makes total sense. Yeah, just because I always wonder with it depends what circles you're around and that kind of thing. So yeah, like a coming out is sometimes like an ongoing process for the rest of your life because
Yeah,
people
yeah,
are assumed
it's
often
not
to
it's
be,
not a thing like you do once and then you're done,
yeah,
which is like how movies and TV always show it. It's just like, oh, the one tearful
exactly.
conversation with the parents, and then
Yep.
suddenly,
Yeah, everyone knows, and that would be an extra piece of advice for people, anyone who's like thinking of coming out this Pride Month. Yeah, you're probably gonna have to do it a few times, so you know
yeah.
that's just how it is. But
Also, the weird thing with coming out as ace as well is like you kind of have to give like a 101, this is what asexuality is kind of explanation to a lot of people,
right, yeah,
because there's not as much education about it.
no, which
Yeah.
is
But particularly when it's people like our sort of age, where it's just like, oh yeah, when I was growing up, it was illegal to teach people about being queer in schools.
yep. That, and for our non-UK viewers, that we're referring to Maggie
Yeah,
Thatch.
Section 28.
Yep, love that for us.
Which was wasn't rescinded until 2003, I think. So I was like 11 or 12 when it became legal.
I didn't realize it was that
Yeah.
late. Fucking hell.
Yeah, but then of course, just because it became legal doesn't mean that they started doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And just to be clear, it meant that teachers were not allowed to talk about their sexuality if they were in any way.
Yeah, yeah. You weren't allowed to discuss queerness at all. Basically, it was considered to be promoting homosexuality.
Exactly, yeah. So it was kind of like metaphorical book burning, basically, of gay stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
and hey, you might recognize some of the same things happening right now when they talk about trans people in schools.
No,
I know.
No,
almost like they're just repeating the exact same points over again.
What? No, they're just having conversations in a very hateful and dangerous way, David. Yeah, I mean, we're both on turf island soil, which is something that we got to fight against every day.
Yeah, we live on the same island as the shitty wizard lady.
Yep. A Scot we don't like.
Yeah, no,
we like the Scots, but not that Scot.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I guess that would be. What are your goals for this Pride Month? If any,
I don't know if I have it. Obviously, to go to a Pride parade would be nice.
Yeah.
It's like, again, having gone to a proper one for a couple of years, I went to a Reclaim Pride march last year, which was fun.
Ooh, very nice.
It was like an actual protest to be like, hey, let's get corporations and cops out of Pride.
I love that. Yeah. Cops. Ooh. Yeah. Ugh, cringe. Yeah. No, my petty immature goal would be to just roast some turfs, because I love goofing on turfs. I love making fun of them. And then my more sort of positive one would be maybe to find some kind of good fundraising opportunities. Speaking of turfs, something for our trans siblings. But yeah, something like that, and go to a pride parade.
Yeah, like raising money for queer charities and things is something I'd like to do more of, because I did one last year and I raised just over $5,000 for it, which was like, wow,
that's amazing. Well done. Yeah, that's awesome. No, that's yeah.
And again, and that's one of the things where it's like, if I at like my level, I think at the time I was at about like 25,000 subscribers. It's like, imagine what the people with like real followings can do. Like if just like a celebrity just held like a charity live stream, imagine how much money they would raise.
I know. They should do it.
I don't think most of them will be good at it, but they should do it anyway.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like when celebrities try and come onto YouTube, it just seems to not land.
No.
Yeah, a few spring to mind, but yeah,
Yeah,
well,
like the only one I ever heard anything good about was when Jack Black did Jablinski Games, where the whole point was just that he never actually played any games on the channel. It was just a joke.
I love that. Yeah, exactly. The one good example.
But my favorite gag I saw that he did with that was he was doing like the classic like gamer YouTube thing where they got like the little like camera thing down in the corner and then the game's up in the thing, and then like it went off and it was just him sat in a little box with like a massive green screen around him. Wow. So he didn't just like do like a picture picture. He just sat there with a big green screen. Like, that's a great joke.
Oh no, he is good. He's someone I would feel very heartbroken if I heard he was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So let's hope nothing bad comes out about him. Please don't be a piece of shit, Jack Black. We like you. We're rooting for you.
Like I don't make it so I can't ever watch School of Rock again.
Yeah. Know? Oh my God. Could you imagine? Yeah. No, that would be heartbreaking. Math is a really cool thing. Yeah. But anyways, thank you so much for giving me your time today. I really appreciate it. Tell the people where they can find your work and where they can support you.
Yeah, so the main place would obviously be my YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/David J. Bradley. I'm sure you'll put a link somewhere.
Of course. Of course.
And I'm on Twitter at David J. Bradley 1. And you can support my Patreon, patreon.com/David J. Bradley. Give me money and I will make things.
Nice. Yeah.
Like hopefully I'll write a new video soon.
Yes. Too many things to talk about, too little time, you know? Exactly. But let's do our bye-bye now.
Okay.
You know the Toy Story 2. You know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So
the thing you always say to me on the phone whenever you hang
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. See, people, you got to go watch that video. You don't know what we're talking about. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.